It was early 2018 and the first rumors of a Project Jedi began clouding the tech blogging community as the first attempt on Google entering the gaming industry, and a surprising invitation a few months later to request to participate on Project Stream to test a full version of Assassin's Creed Odyssey playable from Chrome, and you needed nothing more. And this is a new chapter for the cloud gaming. Hello there, I am Jesus, and in this video I'm recapping what led Google Stadia from then to today. A little fast forward from 2018 to March 2019, Game Developers Conference, and surprisingly, Google has a full turn on stage, and even more surprisingly was the presence of Google CEO Sundar Pichai with the opening statement.
Another little known fact is that Google makes arguably the most played game on the internet today. It's the Dino Chrome game, mostly played when there's no internet connection. Not going to talk to you about the high-quality graphics and sophistication you all are used to, but it does have a lot of players, and I've probably logged more hours than I care to admit. While I'm not a big gamer, I do have the privilege of working at a company and leading a company full of people who love to solve hard computer science problems. For many Googlers, their journey with computers started with games. Games have inspired many generations of people to pursue careers in tech. And through that process, they build resourcefulness, creativity, and collaboration, all qualities that are key to solving hard problems.
And without much further ado, and to present what was in store, and a surprising return of notorious Phil Harrison, known to brush both PlayStation 3 and Xbox One's launches, landed an important VP position in Google for the Project Stream, and to later confirm the name of Stadia. Stadia is a gaming platform where the users will only need their updated computer with not necessarily demanding GPU or a smartphone or a Chromecast Ultra or even Chromecast to be able to access the game library. Later it was revealed that you needed a minimum Chromecast Ultra. This trend is the concept that had been called in gaming as a service, where you will not need a lot of hardware and everything will be reached with just a click. According to Google, for the creation and development of Stadia, Google focused on three principles: create, scale, connect. And with this in mind, the service has more than 100 units of development hardware that have been sent to studios around the world. Google, without sparing resources, debuted Stadia with more than 7,500 edge node location or edge computing nodes around the world to bring Stadia hardware closer to the user. By that keynote, Google did not enter in details about the hardware behind every node of Stadia, but if Stadia had a physical form, the hardware will feature a personalized x85 CPU hyper-threaded AVX up to 2.7 GHz of frequency, a personalized AMD RDNA 2 GPU with 10.7 teraflops, along with 56 compute units, HB2M memory, and 16 GB of RAM using L2 plus L3 cache up to 9.5 MB. In paper, this specification makes Stadia 6 teraflops more powerful than the Xbox One X and 4.2 teraflops more powerful than the PlayStation 4 Pro, which at the time was an impressive rally cry. And nowadays, it makes it by a few inches more powerful than a PlayStation 5, which basically Google covered current and then future generation of gaming. Stadia was able to run on a screen of 720p, 1080p, and 4K, and Google acknowledged that there's no need right now, but Stadia is capable of running at 8K too, but I do also find it unnecessary too even today. Oh, and about Project Jedi was not really a console, but the only hardware that Stadia has is the Stadia controller, and while it is not obligated to have one, except for launching period that is, the highlight from the Stadia controller is that proved the experience for users, as the controller was designed to be a direct link for Stadia server, assuring the most low latency of input as possible. Finally, and best of all, you only needed 35 megabits per second of constant speed to ensure the experience, including 5.1 digital surround sound for Stadia with a low minimum of 10 megabits per second, 4 1080p resolution. There are more on this, but I wanted to continue while highlight the problems that Stadia began facing as the time progressed from the November 2019 launch. The launch itself, and I will start the launch itself with Stadia Pro. Stadia Pro is no different than Xbox Live Gold or PS Plus, where you have certain capabilities if you pay $9.99 per month, like monthly free games, and they are yours as long as you keep the subscription. Upscaling images to 4K and details around 5.1. And that was one of the first complaints. Since Google, before launching Stadia in November, clarified that this is not about an accessible collection of games, but a platform where you will pay for games as you would do on Steam and now the Epic Game Store. Many people were wary of a game store where you buy license of the game, but more than a game, you are practically buying the access itself with no opportunity to play it offline. Which this point probably is right if you don't understand the concept of cloud gaming, and that of course counts with constant internet connection. This and the catalog being smaller compared to other stores is still nowadays a constant issue for Stadia. Second point on the problem and bad criticism that Stadia faced since launch is one big empty promises, and it is the gamer Google Assistant. Google touted that Stadia's usage of Google Assistant will have its digital assistant ready to help you automatize the experience, including a special task that if you are trapped in a certain level and you don't know how to progress, it will connect directly to YouTube with videos related to the problem or level. Google Assistant for Stadia was launched along with the Founders Edition as a beta, but practically it was unlimited in terms that it was the same Google Assistant that we will find in Android and Chrome OS, and not much of the promises of Stadia's exclusive features were anywhere to be seen. Nowadays, in 2022, Google doesn't even mention Assistant anymore, and many, probably including me, believe that Google implicitly halted the development, and of course, they are more than welcome to surprise us. Their issue, and while practically not an ongoing issue anymore, has been a constant complaint since launch and the first months of Stadia, and it is called the 4K issue, and a lie, and spoiler alert, it's not in my opinion. I am going directly that 4K was not a false promise, and I rather call it a bit of lack of transparency from Google's part. To underread, Google waited until people began noticing that some games were not really 4K and they were upscaled 4Ks, and a few games did have 4K real resolution. At no point prior to its release, it had been made clear that 4K gaming will require any other than the user having a 4K TV or monitor and being Stadia Pro, and then the blowing low end of the 4K it was performed in gaming. Like Red Dead Redemption 2, Google indicated that Stadia's platform does overscaling of graphics, but support for true 4K falls onto the developers. Again, transparency is important, and the lack of its issue is where I leave Google to blame. And unfortunately to this day, transparency is still one of the big ongoing issues for Stadia and Google. Finally, the last point of launch day that did end up well was the rise and fall of Stadia Games and Entertainment. Another surprise by the Google's Game Developers Conference presentation of Stadia is that not only Phil Harrison, big mistake, was on board as its VP, but also Jade Raymond. The woman known for her stint at Electronic Arts and Ubisoft, particularly being the key person to convert Assassin's Creed as a big hit for Ubisoft, was directly involved in Stadia. And her role was to lead Stadia Games and Entertainment, a first-party studio for Stadia for game development, for Stadia exclusivity, and a connection for the independent studio for making publishing possible at Stadia. After launch, things were looking good, and Stadia Games and Entertainment not only opened a satellite office in Canada, but also bought Typhoon Studios, creators of Journey to the Savage Planet, and a signal that Google was going strong on creating exclusive for Stadia. But a little after Stadia's first anniversary and quite build the time in complete silence, Google surprisingly on February 2021 announced that it was folding Stadia Games and Entertainment, making all weird timing, including the revelation that days prior to the announcement, the same Phil Harrison communicated internally with Stadia employees that things were smoothly with Stadia Games and Entertainment. With the close of Stadia Games and Entertainment, mean closing the California and Canada offices, and a massive attempt of Google on trying to transfer the core of the 150 employees that were at the risk of getting laid off, and unfortunately, not everyone got another job at Google. Google via Harrison justified the move as they were now envisioning Stadia so that the service can be seen more as a platform and appeal for the developers and publishers, who had a good relationship with some of those who have already released games and others who have been waiting for more. Internally, things were not bad, but also they weren't running well, as practically Jade Raymond did not execute as much as it was expected, but not because she was lazy or waiting to land an opportunity, but felt limited by management and the constant lack of focus with Stadia, and unfortunately meant an unceremonious exit of Jade Raymond from Google. Google keeping minor promises and under-delivering the hype. From GDC until at least second half of 2021, I can sum without taking more than a time that I felt that Google had an intern managing their marketing department for Stadia, because they had been constantly timed when practically abusing of building hype to underdeliver, and one occasion honestly was the Good Stuff campaign on fall 2020, where Google separated 3 days of the week of October 20 of 2020 actually, for separate announcement, and quite honestly many, including me, were hyped on what Google wanted to say that needed 3 days. Unfortunately, all those sessions went by, and while the highlight was Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which was already a great deal itself by the way, but in reality each Good Stuff session summed together an average of 15 minutes in total. 15 minutes! With this and a great description of one of the biggest problems of Stadia is dealing with currently, in my opinion, they need to currently address abusing of the hype with minor announcements, believing that they are actually big announcements. That Business Insider report. Without much to add between 2020 and now, I must say that a shift in Stadia as we knew it was coming. But Google didn't publicly acknowledge, and we got an idea either way when rumors began circulating that Google was offering a white label variant of Stadia. White label is like selling a product based on another product, but the presentation belongs to the former. Imagine PlayStation selling console almost identically to PlayStation 5 but had the Samsung branding for some exclusivity. The idea was not new, but definitely is a boost for Google Cloud, and a proper in-depth description was posted by Business Insider on February 2022, where the sources reported that Google has been pleased with the white label campaign or providing services through the capability of Stadia without, however, naming Stadia, and this will now be the main purpose of the service. This may mean that Stadia as a consumer platform continues, but has lost priority at the team behind the Stadia. As we know, it was reduced to an operational minimum. Reportedly, efforts included that after the big win of AT&T offering Batman Arkham Knight through a special website for AT&T mobility customers, conversations continue with Peloton. Peloton was designing a limb break game with Stadia as a backend for its exercise devices. A deeper association with Bungie, who was the first partner of Stadia with Destiny 2, and Capcom to be the new client, as the Japanese needed a platform to do demos and presentation of games without consumer really installing the demos or the game. The link of the report is at the description of this video. Immersive stream and the change of narrative. A month later, and at the 3rd anniversary of Stadia presentation at the GDC, in the 2022 edition of the same event, Google announced an Immersive Stream, a business-to-business opportunity using the bet of Stadia to bring more opportunities to business partners, and already a high-profile customer included AT&T, that launched a cloud gaming version of Batman Arkham Knight in an exclusive access for the mobility customer in a virtual keynote. assuring that AT&T is committed with Immersive Stream and 2022 were bound for a second game, and while making the script of this video, it was revealed that the second game is Control Ultimate Edition. Without confirming who else is on board, Google product VP a few weeks later changed the narrative of Stadia, alluding that Immersive Stream was actually the original product worked on Project Stream and that Stadia is actually the sub-product. Here's the quote. Yes, this is a convenient way to say that everything is as planned, but the reality is that unless Immersive Stream was a high-profile secret from Google, I don't believe Immersive Stream was the end, or at best scenario, it was a reaction than proactivity. But again, it is undeniable that Stadia now depends on Immersive Stream to success. My conclusion is that for cloud gaming perspective, it was a market revived by Google where OnLive and Gaikai failed to maintain the hype, and definitely PlayStation Now got things shortened too soon. That Google could have done better decisions, definitely, but it's undeniable that without Google interest on cloud gaming, we will not have Microsoft, Nvidia, or Amazon invested their own cloud gaming answers, in which I will talk about in future videos. With this, you can tell me in the comments if you're a Stadia user, a fan, former, or both, and your thoughts on the service being heading to be 3 years old this November 2022, and what would you have made difference for Stadia. For now and for more content, please hit the subscribe, like, and notification button so you can get to be the first viewer of every new video published on YouTube, or follow me for more if you are seeing this on Theta TV and not missing anything out. Also, I am the news writer for the gaming social network called GGS. You can register for free, as this is a community from gamers to gamers where gaming is all that matters and nothing else. Thanks a lot for watching. This was your host, DJesus. Hang out with me on GGS, Twitter, Hover, and search for Jesus on Facebook Gaming. I'll see you on the next one.